Welcome back everybody to another edition of Nain's Shorts. Not Short Nain, that's a whole different video. Has nothing to do with me, we just happen to share a name. But thank you for coming back. For those of you who are new, please like and subscribe, share, and bear with me a little bit because it is hot as all hell. It's actually 95 degrees in San Francisco, which is so unheard of. Everywhere else is in the 3 digits, and you just go 15 minutes in any direction, and it literally is that much hotter. But here we are, still training, still going at it, and I wanted to touch on a subject that kind of hit home today. I mean that in the most literal sense, because in my training, I started using boxing gloves. We started putting on gloves with my training partner, and we started making light contact, getting into some sparring techniques, but still, I found myself at a bit of a loss. Not only was it hot and I'm wearing a gi top, but my training partner is 6 foot something. I'm gonna say around 6'2", good 200 and something pounds, and he's just muscular, super fit. He's a dancer by trade. I don't know how that worked, but he's very fit. He's much younger than me. So he definitely has a lot of intimidation going for him. His arm is super long. So I have to move a lot more just to get close enough to land some of these body shots and actually reach his head. I'm punching upwards just to reach to him. And I started thinking, wow, just that size alone has created kind of a bit of a barrier in my head. And it reminded me of other things that I've read, like for example in BJJ, right? When you fight somebody that's much bigger or much heavier than you, that belt kind of changes. Like if you have a black belt that's a lighter weight, a black belt that's much heavier is going to just thrash that guy. So usually the belt is a little lower if you're going to fight somebody bigger. And again, this is just one article I read, so that size makes a huge difference with something like grappling. But we're talking about application here in a fight, in a real fight, and how does that really affect how you go about taking care of whatever you need to? Now, we like to say, oh yeah, anybody that comes, we're just going to break through and we're going to whatever your motto is for that, but there's a huge difference between coming up against a guy that's like Mike Tyson versus somebody who's a bit smaller like Jet Li. Yeah, both badasses in their own regard, but you might be a little bit more comfortable and a bit more energetic with one than the other, simply because that alone is going to give you pause. But how much of that is true? How much of that actually happens when we find ourselves in those situations? Now, I don't know about you. I haven't been in a lot of fights outside of class, and I know that that can be a bit of a handicap when it comes to training, which is why I'm now doing more contact stuff, which is why I'm going up against somebody that's much bigger than me, because I want to feel that pressure. I want to overcome that pressure so I'm better prepared if I ever do have to fight. But now I'm thinking about my instructors. You know, you see one and you know what they can do. You've been with them for years and they've mopped the floor left and right with you. And depending on your relationship with them, whether you look at them as the all great poobah and you never want to, mess up a strand of hair on their head, then you might go a little softer. You may not go as intense as if you're going with somebody who's a lower rank than you. Them, you're better off, you're good, but when it comes to the master, you can't even touch them. So you may not even try as hard. Versus with me and my instructors, they tell me to hit them. Like, I literally try to hit these guys on a regular basis because, well, that's what my master said to do. They said to hit them. And out of respect, I'm going to do it. But I also understand that if I can't make it work with somebody that's obviously much better than me, then am I really going to make it work with somebody that isn't as good? But at the same token, whenever I play with somebody that's a different level, it is a little easier. The techniques that I try to do, or the things that I try to make contact with, the movements, the angles, it gets a little easier to reach them when I don't have that weight behind the idea that, oh my God, this person can really kick my ass. And I wonder, does that really affect people? Say, for example, you're even in sports fighting. You're up against a guy, he's about your same height, same weight, and you don't think much of it. You get into the ring, turns out they're really good. You get out of the ring, it turns out that they've been doing this much longer than you have and have a very impressive winning streak. Now all of a sudden you feel a little bit more nervous getting back into that ring. You feel a little bit more hesitant, a bit more weary about everything that's happening in front of you. And I think one of two things usually happens. Either you go down the road where everything starts failing. Everything that you try is no longer working. Or you try much, much harder and you start doing things that you never thought possible, that you never thought of before. Because you're being inspired by that fear. You're overcoming that fear. And on the other end, you're being smothered by that fear. And I just wonder, at what point does that happen? At what point in our training do we start evaluating people based on their resumes? Based on whether something we know firsthand or something that somebody else told us? And how much is that hindering us from progressing? Maybe this is why people always say that you need to cross-train, you need to train outside of your school so you can get that sense of, holy crap, maybe I do need to work a little harder on my craft, or maybe I'm still lacking in certain areas that I need to fill in because this little person just whooped my ass in what they do. Because it's not something I'm comfortable with, not something I've trained before. And you hear it all the time, but I've never really took any effort into understanding why. Now I cross-train because it's fun, and I've made a lot of friends in the martial arts world that are amazing practitioners at what they do, and trying to pull any knowledge from them I possibly can is going to help me in the long run, so of course I'm going to do it. But am I taking it for granted in that I'm not considering how their background is affecting the way that I see them? Because I could, in my head, talk them up more than they're actually able to do. And I'm not trying to step on any toes, but sometimes that does happen in life. We view people at a much higher level than they are actually at. Which means we're no longer evaluating people based on real criteria or useful information, but rather our own imagination. And it can go both ways. We can look at somebody and see them as being much less and think nothing of them and be overconfident and get killed. Or we can look at somebody and think way too much of them that we don't even try. That we might have been able to win or overcome had we not been so suppressed by our idea of them. So that's what's been going on in my head after fighting that dude. Well, it wasn't really fighting, we were just a little light sparring, and we were just getting into it after our yellow belts, because he's also a yellow belt now too. And it's where it happens, and this is why I wanted to take this art and start doing this, because I wanted that contact, I want to feel it. And now I have a better direction because of this conversation on how it is that I'm going to look at this person, because it's going to help me better evaluate not just the people in front of me, but myself, to know what I'm truly capable of. Because if you don't believe what you're doing or believe in what you're doing, then you're probably not going to be able to do it as effectively when you need it. Right? Just like the Blade of Mind says, succeed because you believe. Fail because you doubt. That's a direct one from Danny. Danny, shout out to you. Because it makes sense. But what we actually believe, then that's going to be determined on what sort of information we're taking in. And the clearer it is, the better the assessment. And if we don't allow ourselves to be clouded by the weight of somebody's experiences, then maybe we can learn a little bit more. Maybe we can overcome our own deficiencies a little faster, or a little better, or a little bit more effectively, to the point where we don't fall victims to our own imagination of what the person in front of us truly represents. So, again, just a thought. Hopefully this helps you in some way. It takes you in a direction that you may not have thought of before, or just brings up old conversations that you've had with your instructors and friends that are in the art. Because ultimately, we're just a group of information that's getting together and sharing with everyone as much as humanly possible. And that's what these videos are for, really, is to share, well, personally my journey, but it often reflects the journey of other people. Maybe questions that have not been asked out loud, that you wanted to ask, but you weren't necessarily in a place where you were free to ask them. So here I am. I have no problem making a fool of myself because, well, I don't fear failure. I've fallen. I actually have a scrape on my forehead right now from weekend class because I took a stick to the head. And I learned from that. And it's funny to say that now, because if we're talking about the perception of things, it's easy. It is very easy to address something that has happened. Physical contact, I can address that. I can tell you what it was, I can tell you why it happened, and I can learn from it. But when it's mental, when it's our own imagination, that's a lot harder. And if we don't talk about these things, if we don't discuss and share with each other those perceptions and how they actually affect what we do, then how do we learn how to overcome them? And that's what I'm hoping this helps some of you out with, in that we're talking about something that may be in the back of our minds that we may not have discussed or have not really considered yet. Am I looking at the person in front of me, this potential opponent, as somebody far more menacing than they actually are? Or are we taking them way too lightly? And that too can be just as dangerous, because all of a sudden we're overconfident and we're not trying as hard. And then you get that one hit, that one strike, that one stab, that one punch, whatever the attack may be. And they may not be as nice as you are. They may not stop there. They may keep going. Because ultimately, folks, that's why I train. I train for that scenario. Somebody that wants to hurt me and isn't going to stop simply because I'm knocked out or I try to tap. That's not the real world. But we have to be able to see it as clearly as possible. I know there's danger out there, and I keep my eyes out for it so I never have to engage it. But if I do, if I'm overconfident, if I'm not confident enough, either way, right? Pitfalls. And this is how my training is now going to evolve. Now I'm going to really assess where I am at any given point. So, thank you again for joining me on here, Nain Shorts. Now, my good buddy Rick is on the mend. We are slowly but surely getting back on track with Kali Konversation, so keep an eye out for that. If you have any suggestions, please feel free to contact us. We are willing to travel within reason, simply because, again, this is an out-of-pocket expense. So if you feel free and have a little extra green to share, there's a donation button in the description. Go ahead and click that and donate whatever you can, as much as you can, as often as you'd like. But please do help out. And if not, at the very least, like and subscribe. Again, that does help our numbers, and it helps some algorithm do something or other for YouTube. I'm not 100% sure on the details, but I know it is helpful. And that notification button, if you ding that, it will give you notices every time we put up a new video, including the Kali Konversations that will be coming back soon. So folks, stay cool as much as you possibly can in this crazy, crazy weather, and I'll see you on the next one. Till then, 3, 2, 1, cut!